Me, 17, at friend's house, playing video games and hanging out. Have to shit really bad. It's Taco Bell shits. The kind that are really greasy and takes forever to wipe. Like 16 feet of toilet paper and leaving streaks the whole way through. Say BRB and hit the bathroom. Start releasing colon Cthulhu a fraction of a sec before my ass ham slapped the toilet seat. Sweet relief. Reach for the TP. Saw the roll was all used up. Look around. No TP. Anywhere. Stranded on the first floor of his house without a single square. Too awkward to yell for help. Look around for alternative wipe ammo. Two things. His dad's new car mag and his mum's Bible. Dad's huge, love cars, and prone to aggressiveness. Mum's a sweet lady, a very sweet and soft-spoken. Would feel very bad if I did that to her. Dad could kick my ass. Also, doesn't give a damn about religion. I rip a few pages in the middle of the Old Testament. Christians don't read that shit. Paper is thin. Get lots of paper cuts to my ass crack. 10 pages later, I'm clean. Pulling up pants when a second wave hits. Don't even have time to flush the toilet. Poodle lasagna mode engaged. After a third round, I sat for another 20 minutes just to make sure everything was out. By now, my friend was outside the door asking if I'm okay. Just say, I'll be out in a few, just passing some used burritos. Clean myself up for the fourth and final time. By now, about 1/4 of the Old Testament is noticeably gone. Toilet has more in it than its plumbing can handle. Have to act fast, he's outside the door. Tried plunging, but there's too much paper. This time I make sure that there's an antibacterial soap by the sink. Hands can be washed. Roll up sleeves and reach into the toilet to start hand pulping the solid mass. As I'm on my knees processing the Purina Rooney Chow, I notice a full roll of toilet paper that was sitting on the toilet backing the whole time. What the fuck did I just do? .jpg. Flush toilet with elbow. Starts overflowing. Half pages of Old Testament smeared with shit scattering across floor. Rip the lid off the tower and desperately trying to unstick the cheap ass plumbing. Tank empties and something I did fucked it up. Toilet starts making really loud gurgling chainsaw sound. Fred starts pounding on the door yelling, "What am I doing?" Over the span of 40 seconds, the sound gets louder and deeper. Turns into a grinding sound wearing down, then stops. The whole time in shock with my shit-covered hands on my forehead. Fred kicks down door, yelling. Stops mid-sentence, staring at me. I'm wide-eyed, smeared with shit on my face and hands. There's some on my jeans. Heavily brown-tinted water and soggy pages of the Old Testament coating the floor. Mum's Bible sitting forgotten on the floor, soaked with shit water. By now, I hear his parents' footsteps coming down the hall. Friend is standing there, staring. Doesn't know what to do. His mum comes in, shocked. Starts tearing up and whimpering a little bit. My grandmother gave me that Bible a month before she died of cancer. His dad comes in a few seconds later. Shocked, she sees the Bible pages and starts laughing. Starts walking away, still laughing. He screams at the end of the hallway. Anon, you are fucked! Friend's mum starts wailing and crying. Why did you do that, Anon? Over and over, hysterical. I start crying too, but I look like a pissed off baboon when I cry. She thinks I'm sneering at her and walks away crying harder. Here is Dad cracking a beer in the kitchen. I turn to a friend and say, look, I can punch me in the face, cheekbone stinging. Grabs me by the hood of my jacket and forces me out of his house. Seeing his mum bawling and picking up a phone as we pass. Out on the street, a mile from my house, no ride, covered in shit and paper. I start walking back to my house. 30 minutes later, a lady stops and asks me if I need a ride. I get in. Lady starts driving. Get self-conscious about the shit drying on me. She's making small talk. A minute later, she smells the shit stank and looks at me. She pulls over on the side hard. My head hits the window. She starts screaming at me in Chinese, gesturing for me to get out. Yeah, she was Asian, but she had a perfectly New England accent. Surprised the shit out of me. Get out of car. Later, a fat guy in a pickup truck asked me where I was going. Offered to let me hop in the cargo bed. Get right home. Sneak past parents and take shower. Try to call friend over and over and over to explain myself. No answer. Fourth try. My friend answered and screamed at me to stop, then hung up. Over the next week, I noticed the neighbours and classmates looking at me a lot. Start hearing Mum Hater, Satan Boy, and Ass Testament behind my back. Nicknames were spread through the school like wildfire. Younger kids I'd never talked to and barely even looked at coming up to me and saying them to my face. One of my closest friends, who was a Christian, got distant and eventually stopped talking with me. Story gets to the teachers. A few days later, I get called into the principal's office. Superintendent is there. Tells me they're expelling me for gross ridicule of religious beliefs. Mum and Dad find out. Mum starts acting weird around me. More tense. Looks at me a lot. Feels like she thinks she doesn't know me. Dad thinks I'm just being deviant, and I need strict structure and reform. 2 hours later, he's on the phone with an army recruiter, volunteering me for boot camp. Fast forward to boot camp. It's alright at first. First couple of days were sore, but a few days in, my buddy starts going with it. One day, I get a package from some nons from my old school. It was a stack of pictures of me, photoshopped me to look like I was wiping my ass with a Bible. On the back of each picture, there's a nickname. Overly curious guy comes over and takes them from me. A few minutes later, the whole barracks is sharing the pictures and laughing their asses off. A couple of them even later found out my best friend's email and asked them for the whole story. Later, I noticed one of the other guys looking at me a lot. I found out he comes from an ultra-conservative family and he hates me for what I did. He bumps into me later and I try and make small talk. When no one else was listening, he told me that if I were ever in combat, he would shoot me and say it was Arabs. Start noticing drill sergeants singling me out. One day, we start training with live ammo. Day of training with live ammo. Go to bathroom in the morning. Barely notice everyone is watching me. On toilet, realize that all the paper's been removed and there's nothing in the room except for a Bible. Start yelling. Get laughter in response. Everyone goes to training, leaves me there. Fuck no.jpg. I start ripping pages from that motherfucker and wiping like no tomorrow. Paper cuts make my anus bleed. Blood starts dripping everywhere. I can't put on the uniform without staining it. Rip out a stack of pages and roll them up and put it in my crack like a hot dog in a bun. Ripped out some more pages and fashioned myself a makeshift King James diaper. Wear it under uniform. Audibly crinkly, but I'm going to be late for training. Hope we're shooting again. Turns out to be marching in formation before weapons training. 10 minutes into the drill, the sergeant notices the sound. Drill sergeant makes a stop and asks who's reading the paper. The guys start looking at me. Drill sergeant starts making me jog in place. Loud crinkling. Asks what the hell that sound is. Orders me to drop my pants. King James diaper exposed to the world. He swears low and tells me to run 200 laps around the boot camp. No choice. Do it. Half an hour later, I'm running through a less visible wooded side of the camp. None other than Mr. Jesus Avenger, who said he would kill me if he could get away with it, pops out from behind a bush. He's got a bottle of Jack Daniels in one hand and a handgun in the other. Smacks me in the face with the bottle and shoots me in the foot. Pours bottle over my face and mouth while I'm screaming. Runs away. Drill sergeant comes looking for me. Incident gets lodged and investigated. Turns out Jesus boy fed them a bullshit story. Said I've been harassing him about his religion and mocking him by defacing his Bible. I get discharged for religious intolerance, drinking, and recklessness. Found out later that he only got a formal warning about going AWOL in the army. Moved back in with parents. Dad's disappointed in me, and Mum won't talk to me. Start putting out job applications. My name and story have spread, and no business in town wanted anything to do with me. A month later, Dad thinks I'm a bum and have been looking for a job. Kicks me out. Homeless, I start drifting. This is probably the worst point in my life, but it gets better from here. Become a vagrant for 2 years. Dehumanizing and disgusting at first. Got food in the homeless programs during the day. Went drifter and start going from town to town on foot. Eventually, digging through garbage when I got hungry at night. First winter, I met and became 2 friends with 2 other drifters. Their names were Bob and Shaky. He's called Shaky because he drank so much and it fucked his motor functions. Bob's girlfriend died of heroin overdose 3 months before. Met them under a bridge outside of town. We travelled together and kept each other company. Woke up in the middle of night once to a weird sound. Saw they were sucking each other's dicks. Not one to dodge, JPEG. Go back to sleep. A month later, they tried to kill me. Bub, Shaky and I were walking through town one day. See a $50 bill? We're all thinking, booze! I want Jim Beam, but Shaky's an alcoholic. Wants as much cheap $6 vodka as a 50 can get. Fuck you, I found it. Bub comes at me with a half pair of scissors. Out of fucking nowhere. He stabs me twice in the leg, grabs the money. Dirty ass pals run away. Never see them again. 3 days later, get a fever from infection. Collapse on someone's stoop for a few hours. Pus from the wound seeping through my dirty Tom jeans. A cop pulls up and tells me to keep walking. Try to stand up, leg hurts too much. Cop yells over and yanks me to my feet. Yells, "Get moving!" Throws me forward. I grab my leg in pain. Wounds are open, bleeding me again. Cop finally sees my condition. He takes me to the homeless shelter to the next town over. Doesn't say a word to me the whole way. At shelter, a cute redhead comes in with a first aid kit and a box of gloves. She seemed upbeat and generally sorry about my wounds. First time being treated like a human by a female in a long time. Sprout boner, throbbing in pants. She sees. Vague look of disgust flashes over her face. I feel bad and apologize. She laughs nervously and treats my wounds. Gives me a tube of tropical antibiotic. Tells me it won't get me high and that it's only worth a couple of bucks. So much for being treated like a human. After a couple of days, the wounds start to heal. Shelter gives me the boost and I get back to drifting. Fast forward a few months and it's winter. Wandering through a new, more urban town, it's 1 AM. Roads are empty. Found a winter jacket that's just my size in a Goodwill donation bin. Walking along, see a lady in a corner. I know she's a hooker, but she's barely wearing anything. It's freezing out, she's shivering. I go up to her and say hi. She asks if I got cash. No. Tells me to fuck off, sounds tired. Offer my jacket. She looks at me strange for a few seconds. She says she can't cover up on the job. Thanks me anyways and smiles. She's not all that skanky looking. A little worn, but there's still a bit of spark of dignity. I stayed and made small talk with her. I kept her mind off the cold. Around 3 AM a dirty botanic pulls up. Heavyset Latin guy at the wheel screams for Denise. Her name was Denise. Gives me a 1,000-yard stare and asks me if I'm a customer. I say no. He tells me to fuck off. As I walk away, he starts smacking her and asking who I was. Throws her in the car. Wonder about her all day. Sleep in vacant alley. The next night, I came back to that corner and she was there. She had a black eye and was counting bills on the sly. Curious at first, she says that Sam will cut us both if she sees me again. I tell her I'm passing through. Sit behind a box in the alley behind her, out of sight. We talk all night between customers. Almost 3, she tells me to get lost before Sam comes around. I take off. It goes on like this for almost a month. We form a bond. We're friends. The drifter and the hooker. She jokes that there should be a kids show based on this. One day, Sam comes rolling up in his botanic a few hours early. Sam pinned me against a wall and pointed a gun at me. Asked calmly who I was. I'm a non, just a drifter. Try to tell him that I'm only friends with Denise. He's got 2 guys with him. They searched me for swindled money. There is none. He figures I'm not scoring free poon, I'm too filthy. Drops me, kicks me, and tells me to fuck off. Says that I'm tainting the product. Says he'll shoot me if he sees me there again. I dropped in on Denise the next night for only 20 seconds. I said goodbye and walked away. I never saw her again. A week later, I'm on the edge of an urban side of town, eating a can of tuna. I see Sam's botanic driving towards me. I duck into alley, and he stops the car. I hear several people behind me, running. They catch up and tackle me. I roll over, Sam staring at me, breathing real heavy. He pulls out a gun and sits on a crate. Lights a cigarette and catches his breath. Eyes locked the whole time. Finally, he says something. Denise is the only reason I'm not killing you today. Turns out she made up a bunch of shit to not get me killed. Among those claims are an expert smuggler looking for work. Told him I was around all the time. I'm that sneaky. My mind shits itself a little bit when he asked me if I want to make $2,000. Pfft, hell yes. Gives me a bubble wrap manila folder and told me to take it to the other side of town. Didn't trust his guys not to get shot. Told me he'd kill me on the spot if I refused. Naturally, I accepted. Told me if I don't go through it, he'd kill Denise. I told him I would do it. Gives me a folded napkin with an address and a yellow beetle written on it. I get the fuck out. When I get to the address, there's 2 Chinese guys sitting in a beetle. I go up to the window. One sees me, pulls out gun. I stop and pull the envelope out of my coat. Window rolls down. I hand him the package and walk away. A few blocks down, I hear yelling and tires burning out. Turn around. The beetle is rushing me. Passenger with gun pointed out the window. I hit the ground as the drive past, then tucked down a side road. After a while, I think I've lost them. Walking over a bridge over a river. Gonna hide out until I know they're gone. Halfway across the bridge, the beetle reappears. I try to run, but I get a bullet in the leg. Car stops. Asian guy gets out. Nobody else around. Picks me up by collar, but it rips. Grabs me by the neck and shoots me twice in the stomach. I remember floating downstream into the wilderness, flanking the urbanized town, trying desperately to stay afloat. I got really tired and weak, lost feeling in my arms and legs bumping around against rocks. Last thing I saw was a dot of light ashore, ahead. Wake up. I'm covered in a brown fleece blanket, right next to a roaring fire. I stand up. My worn clothes are hanging from a stick, drying. There's a pair of damp moccasins by the fire, drying. I look around in a daze. I hear the river rushing a few yards away. There's a fucking teepee pitched under an oak tree, and a fucking Indian staring outside of it, smoking pot. I try to get up. He tells me to lay down and get warm or I'll die. I lay down and fall asleep. A few seconds later, he's shaking me awake. Tells me it's dangerous to go asleep that cold. Turns out the Indian, this balding middle-aged guy with pot and glasses, is named Hector. Hector tells me he's making a spiritual journey on foot to Arizona. He's full Navajo and wants to meet his relatives in a reserve. Asks if I want to join him. Say yes, free pot. We spent the next 6 months walking to Arizona. At first, I took him for a guy in a midlife crisis, but as we travelled, we bonded. Taught me how to hunt and fish, and keep myself clean in the wilderness. Taught me how to craft my own clothes, and supplies from the fat of the land. Once we got to the desert regions, he taught me how to survive like a Navajo. He came from a US background, but he's definitely done his research. One day, we found a peyote plant. He was really happy, and asked if I wanted a spiritual awakening from his people. Bastard got all mystic on me, and told me I would find my spirit guide. In the moment, I agree. Being high on peyote was the most surreal thing I'd ever experienced. Strange, soothing sounds all around. Time and space kept rearranging themselves. I see a temple made out of eyes. A fox trapped me on the shoulder and then ran inside. I followed. There's a human figure made out of water standing next to me. We walked the same and moved the same. In the temple, there was a roll of toilet paper. My mind went into this weird, highly perceptive loop. Weird moment of clarity and the insanity performing all around me. I realized in this moment the strange nature of life. A spiritual events spurred by a single missed roll of toilet paper. This is fucking insane. I'm doing peyote in the desert with a drug addict Native American because of a TP. What the hell happened? The rest of the high was an ocean of blurred images and colours. Forgot my revelation until much later. The next day, we reached the reserve. When we walked into the reserve, we got funny looks. A half-native outsider with a scruffy white guy. Apprehension begins to fade as we introduce ourselves to a group of elders outside a trailer. It's sunset. There's a cool breeze blowing. There's a smattering of hogans and decorated trailers throughout the reserve. They let us stay, if we told our stories. Hector told his. He was a technician in the medium town yearning for his roots. I told my story, and they laughed. We stayed the night, then the next night. Nights turned to weeks, to months. It's weird to be accepted after all of this. When we first arrived, we got a full effect of the reserve. I don't think it was entirely what Hector was expecting. He was looking forward to nature and mysticism. The reserve has modernized a bit. There was Navajo artwork, food, and stories, but we had cable TV, internet, and plumbing. He was a bit disappointed, but reconciled. Tells me, if you're going to chase your dreams, then you have to be ready for disappointment. The people are nice. Let us stay. Eventually, I get a job in a nearby town, call center. Start taking community college classes online for IT. Studying A+ certification. Get a job with a tech firm on a salary of $26,000 a year starting. During my stay at the reserve and the subsequent success, I caught the interest of a native girl my age. Her name's Marissa. Save money. Decide it's time to leave. Donate a few thousand to the reserve as a thank you. Get an airline ticket back to my hometown, where Marissa and I had an apartment and jobs lined up. Looking forward to seeing my parents. Planning surprise visit. Look outside window, watching the country fly below me. Clear sky. Remember back on how I walked across the land. Not mad about anything. Happy and amazed about how things turned out. Settling into apartment and job, I'm clean cut and wearing a suit. Go back to my parents' old house. Mum answers the door, looks at me for a few seconds, faints. When she came to, she started crying, hugging and kissing me. My dad couldn't even believe I was really there. Dad sheds a tear. First time in my life I've ever seen him do that. A million apologies and excuses. Said that a few days after he kicked me out, he had a change of heart. Couldn't find me. 2 years later, thought I was dead. One of the happiest moments of my life. Had another moment of happiness 3 weeks later at work. 3 weeks later, I'm at work, working on a queue of PC repairs. Noticed the name attached to one of the machines, labelled Bad RAM. The name is from my old friend, the one whose house has started this in. I replaced the RAM and booted up. Proxy is string a bunch of CP, beast and other natty depravities onto his hard drive. Hide the folder, power down, repackage. Later, I do some research and find he's now the minister of a local church. Evil smile. Place a phone call to the authorities, informing them of what I found. Next day, his mugshot is in the paper. Find out he's going to prison, excommunicated from the church, and his wife and kids are leaving him. Kids are going to a child psychologist to see if he's touched them. His life falls apart. He never finds out who did it to him. Witness protection. The evil, vicious nature of life comes full circle, bitch. The end.